Okay, in this video here, we're going to be talking about local maximums and minimums. So first, I want to define what does it mean when we say that it is local. Well, that means on a specific interval. Okay, now this is an example of I am looking for your peaks and your valleys. So what do you guys think your peaks are? Well, your peaks would be your maximums. So where are the peaks if I'm looking at this mountain range here? Well, that would be a peak and that would be a peak. So these are our local maximums. Okay, so when it says on an interval, okay, well, on this interval here, that is the maximum. On this interval here, that is the maximum. That's what they mean by the local maximums. Okay, so we are looking for our peaks and we are looking for our valleys. So your local minimum is your valleys. Well, here's a valley, here's a valley. So these here are your local minimums. Now, notice when I did this, I did not mark this point or this point as a local minimum or a local maximum. And that is because in order for it to be a peak, it has to be reaching a high point and then going back down. So this is not going back down. If it was going back down, we would be able to count that as a local maximum. So if this line were to continue and then it dropped down, then there would be a local maximum, but we do not have that. Okay, so there's two local maximums on this graph and there are two local minimums. So that's the first part, just identifying what are your local maximums and what are your local minimums. Okay, now the types of questions that they are going to ask you. It is going to say, if they're asking for the location of a maximum or minimum, they want to know what is the X value. So when they ask for the location, they want to know what is the X value. Okay, so for example, the way the question will be worded is the number at which F has a local maximum. The number at which F has a local maximum. First, identify what is your local maximum. Well, if I'm looking at this picture here, that right there is the only local maximum that I have. And since they ask for the number at which, and that's how they ask for the location, that means that they want to know what is my X value. So this is asking me what is the X value at the local maximum. Well, that would be a 0. And that's your answer. Okay? The other type of question that they're going to ask is they're going to say, if they are asking for the value of the maximum or the minimum, they will be looking for the Y value. And what I mean by that is they will literally just be saying, hey, what is that local maximum or what is that local minimum? So you guys can see down here, they're asking, what is it? What's the value of it? What is the local minimum? Okay, well, first, let's identify our local minimum. That right there is our only local minimum. I'm not going to lie, I almost circled that one down there, but that one does not go back up. So that is not a local minimum. Okay, so we have one local minimum here. Okay, and since they asked me for what is, okay, that tells me they want to know what is the Y value of my local minimum. So there's my local minimum. What's the Y value for it? Well, it is -2, and that is my answer. Okay, and again, I just want to reiterate to you guys here on this one. Okay, you need to have these notes out with you until you have this memorized. Have your notes next to you so you can remember, oh, okay, the way they worded that, they're asking for the X value. The way they worded this one, they're asking for the Y value. Okay, and I will also tell you, you can have multiple answers on this one. You can have multiple answers. Because like you guys saw in that previous one, there can be more than one local maximum. There can be more than one local minimum. So it is possible to have multiples of these. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about when are your functions greater than 0 or less than 0. So starting out here, okay, f of x is greater than or equal to 0 when the graph is above the x-axis. Now, why does that make sense? Well, what's another way to write f of x? Well, you could write it as y. So this is saying, when is your y values greater than or equal to 0? Well, my y values are greater than or equal to 0. Oh, I didn't know I could move that. My y values are greater than or equal to 0 up here, okay? That is where your y values are always greater than or equal to 0, okay? So the first question says, when is f of x greater than or equal to 0? Like when we did this before, you are only going to use your x values. You only use x values when answering this, okay? So from this point here to this point here, my graph is above my x-axis. And I'm only going to use my x value. So I'm going to say that this is negative 5.1. I think I used 5.3 earlier, but that definitely looks more like negative 5.1 when I did that there. Okay, so I'm only going to look at my x values here. So I have negative 6 to negative 5.1. So I'm going to write negative 6 to negative 5.1. Now, do I have a square bracket or parentheses around this? Well, this is greater than or equal to 0. So I need to include each of those numbers there. However, as you guys look, there's another one on this. So we're going to put our u there. Okay, and I also go from this point all the way to this point where it is above. So from here to here, it is above. And I'm going to say that that is 1.90. Okay, so even though it's going up and then it's coming back down, in this interval here, it is above. So I could also say from negative 2 to positive 1.9, it is above because I'm only looking at my x values. Okay, and again, it's greater than or equal to, so we would be including both of those there with the square brackets. Okay, now on our next one here, I've got f of x is less than or equal to 0. Less than or equal to 0. So this is when is your y values less than or equal to 0. Well, that would be when it is below your x-axis. So where is it below my x-axis? Well, that would be down here. It is below my x-axis. Okay, so sections where it is below. From this point to this point, down here, it is below. And then from this point to this point, down here, it is below. Again, we are only going to be looking at your x values. So this point over here, we said was negative 5.1, all the way over here, which is negative 2. So from negative 5.1 to negative 2. Am I including these points for f of x being less than 0? No, because we are not including 0. Okay, so it's from negative 5.1 to negative 2. This section right in here, it is below 0. In union with, I got this point over here, negative 1, or sorry, not negative, positive 1.9, all the way down to 8. I would have a 1.9, and on my 8, I would need a square bracket for my 8. Why do I need a square bracket for my 8? Well, because 8 is down below. I am including 8 down below. If 8 was up top here, I wouldn't include it. But I am including this 8 right here because it is down below. Okay, so that is really the only trick when you guys are doing these where they are greater than or less than functions. Okay, like I said, we're going to have a lot of time to practice this. I know a lot of this is confusing. The more practice that you do, the better off you will feel about answering these questions.